What is up, and welcome to another edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing the podcast. We are brought to you guys today by our advertisers. Our advertisers are Bell to Bell Fitness, Shea Tor, a realtor out in Arizona, former Bruin alum, and my main man Howard Chang, a realtor right here in Los Angeles. Let's go through them, guys. Bell to Bell Fitness is a boxing gym on the West Coast used by their FIT acronym, Fight Inspired Training. My main man, Tony Gonzalez, was the boxing coach for UCLA for over 10 years. He has built this gym on the West Side to learn how to boxing, stay in shape, and get you all the essentials you need to become somebody that is obsessed with boxing and fitness. Make sure to check it out. Go into Bell to Bell Fitness and say you heard about it from the Bruin Bible, and you're going to get a free session with Tony Gonzalez. So make sure to check that out. Shea Tor, my main man. Shea Tor is a licensed real estate agent in Arizona and a lifelong Bruin. He's a current Wooden Athletic Fund donor and football season ticket holder. When not selling houses or going to UCLA games, he loves to travel the country, checking out different arenas, ballparks, and stadiums. If you're looking to make the move to Arizona or know someone who is, please reach out to our loyal friend, Mr. Shea Tor. His phone number is 602-487-3975. Once again, his number is 602-487-3975. Make sure to check that out. And then the local realtor we got out here, Howard Chang. Howard Chang is a local realtor with the Serene team at eXp Realty. Their team has an office right here in Culver City, though they help clients buy and sell homes all over the LA County and the surrounding areas. Howard and his team do a ton of business and are super in tune with the market, knowing winning strategies to give their clients a competitive advantage. Have amazing vendor referrals, are a one-stop shop for anything real estate, and just provide a ton of value for their clients. Howard and his partner, Kyle Draper, are UCLA alums and a huge fans of the UCLA football and basketball programs. You will often see them at games, tailgating and networking, and staying involved with the UCLA alumni community. They would love to help any fellow alumni with accomplishing their real estate goals. So if you guys have any real estate needs in the LA area, look no further. Howard is your guy. All right, guys, we're going to go into the episode. Man, what is up? And welcome to the latest edition of the Bruin Bible. We got a man who's having, one of the better weeks I can remember. Yes, the Bruins, it was a hard-fought game, but they come out with a victory. This man was in Hawaii. I'm talking to him recording. He was on the golf course today. I mean, man, if I come back in another life, Wayne Cook would love to be Wayne Cook in a different scenario. How are we doing, buddy, on this Wednesday, a 3 or 4 days removed from UCLA's first overall game of the 2024 season?
We're doing great, Will. And it was funny. I shared with you my golf experience today. I played a Wednesday golf league, and I started off, and this is semifinals. There's only, two groups going today, and we're playing for a championship. And we lost in a card off, so I'll bury the lead here. We didn't advance, but I started off double bogey, bogey today, and that's like not normal for me. But this is what's so cool about like sports. I didn't lose another hole after that. I ended up winning 5.5 to 3.5, so I battled. He got a half point. We tied one hole after that. I won the rest of them. So what's great is sometimes in sports, like with UCLA, when, I guarantee you every player I've listened to, they're not real happy with the way they played. I think they thought this was going to go different. But man, it's you just got to keep going. You said it right. It's not how hard you get knocked down, right? It's you got to get up and you got to keep fighting. So what's really cool is the team has a video to watch. We're going to get into this and break it down. There's plenty of things they did not do well. But, there's no reason why you can't get better and go out against Indiana and play a game where you maybe look more like the team that I think a lot of us thought you were going to look like going into the season.
Yeah, there's a lot to clean up. It really made sense how Hawaii had a game the previous week. They were able to iron out the kinks. They looked like the more, accomplished team in the first half by all metrics. And then the second half starts, and UCLA really made some great adjustments. We're going to talk about some of the issues that I think could be prolonging past that game. I at least hope not. But there was a lot to go off of with that second half. And, you were out there at the game. I just want to get your impressions. What was it like watching the game in the first half? Because, Wayne, I've covered UCLA for about 4 years now, and I'm struggling to find a worst half of complete football than what we saw in Honolulu, last Saturday. What were your thoughts in the booth with Matt Stevens, just thinking about
So,
what's going on.
well, I wish I was in the booth with Matt Stevens. I was on that field sweating my butt off. Like it was, I'm telling you, that sun would not go away. Like that 1:30 game Hawaii it was hot, and humid. But yeah, I was disappointed. I mean, you know this as well as I do. I've been trying to explain to people that there's a lot of really good players coming back. I feel a little bit justified with the defense because I thought they played really well. A player that I absolutely love, K. Madrano. I think if you don't, if you have to not really get football to not see how valuable he is to this team. He's sideline to sideline. He's absolutely nothing but effort. He's become an absolute leader on this team. And I thought, the secondary was a question mark, and I actually thought they showed up. I know some people out there, like, if you watch modern day college football and you expect your team to not give up any passing yards, you haven't been paying attention to the way the game's played now. You're going to give up, especially when you play a Hawaii. They're really good at getting the ball out and hitting some of those quick hitters. But as you pointed out, Kaika Malloy and that staff made some awesome adjustments. By the end of that game, Shager did not want any part of that defense anymore. And we said that a lot last year, right? We had 5 sacks. We had tons of pressures. The hit by Madrano on the interception, DJ Justice's interception was awesome.
Oh,
He's out there. He's waiting. He played that play so perfectly. And his acceleration to get to him and get him up in the air and have him throw that pass, that was just such an awesome play. But, like, players stepped up. I thought Addison played really well. Ramon Henderson
yeah.
played really, really well. KJ Wallace played really, really well. Like, these were some of the things that we had questions about, and I thought those guys absolutely showed up. Ale Cajo looked really good. Like, we finally got to see his athleticism on the field, and I could keep going because I actually thought the defense was what I thought. Busick was a problem for them. He was good. So like, there was a lot of really good things I saw on defense. That being said, the offense stunk.
Yeah.
And I loved that Ethan Garbers, I screenshotted his quote, and I heard him say it. He's like, listen, he goes, because I think they went into that game kind of believing that they were going to just have chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. And if you watch the modern era of college football, you just can't always go for the chunk play. You've got to take what they give you. And I think that Ethan tried to do too much. There were some times where he should have, eaten the ball. I got to be honest with you. There was a huge mistake to throw the interception coming out of the end zone. But,
Yeah.
And again, coaches are always going to have a couple things during the game where you're going to go, if they could go back, would you have run the ball there and just gone into the halftime? Probably, because it was such a long field and the offense wasn't playing so well. But either way, Garbers can't do that. He's a guy that I've hyped up as much as anybody, and he looked very pedestrian in the first half. Thankfully, he was a totally different quarterback in the second half, and I hope we get to that in a second, because when we talk about the second half, I think it was a different game. But here's the deal, though, and this needs to be said. The offensive line, I went back and watched. I saw it in person, and then, I sometimes it's hard to follow everything. I went back and watched, and the offensive line was worse than I thought. I mean, I thought they pass blocked okay at times, but we really struggled. And I'm not going to point out anybody specific, but there were some players that looked like they should be worried about their position. And again, I hope everybody knows that I always say this from, like, I've covered college football for a long time, played. My dad was a coach and played for the University of Arizona. Like, I've been around football my whole life. Like, every player, when you play bad, we should always be. I was just talking to my buddy, actually, and he was telling me about how Tom Brady always talks about how, like, his whole career, and I know this sounds silly, but he always played like he was going to lose his job. That was just kind of in his brain. Like, if I don't play well, someone's going to take my job. And I wish everybody would play like that, because when you put a bad performance on film, you got to be saying, like, there's another guy that wants my job really bad. And so some of the offensive linemen need to really watch that game film and be honest with themselves, because it was not good enough. We're not going to play another team. And listen, Hawaii tried to bring it, and they did a lot of stuff, whatever, but so what? We were bigger, faster, and stronger than them, so we should have been able to do much better. I mean, our run game was anemic. I don't know if that's the right word. It was terrible. Like we couldn't get anything started, and that starts up front, and that's kind of a bummer. So that's what concerns me going into the season. Is that offensive line play because it's really hard. And I'll talk about it. I don't even think the receivers were perfect. There were some
Sure.
throws that Garber's made, especially in the second half, where if they don't bleed into coverage, and we'll talk about that later, but if they come back to the ball, I always remember Greg Dulcich when you threw him the ball. He went out and got it. He didn't let it come into his body so the guys could knock it away. So I thought there were some plays where Garber threw some really good balls, especially in the second half, that the players should have come up with.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And let's kind of dive into just everything you were talking about with Ethan Garbers. I had the same hype that you had with Garbers, where it's coming to this season. We had our, preseason show. We said if everything goes right for this kid, he can maybe lead the Big Ten in passing. And given the amount of attempts we had, 38 passing attempts compared to just 20 runs, that's still very much in play in what he did in the second half. But the 6 of 19 in the first half, 69 yards, 2 interceptions, including the one before half, which I know you mentioned the one in the end zone. I think some of that's play calling, but you just cannot do that
Can't do that
before half. You cannot do it. You're already going down. Just eat the sack. It's already good. You just cannot get rid of it. He looked completely flustered. To his credit, he really bounced back in the second half. I don't care who you are. If you're throwing for over 200 yards in a half of football, you're doing your job and you're doing it at a high level. So he bounced back in a big way on that. So got to give credit where it's due.
Can I add to that? Because
Absolutely.
this is what's first of all, you're exactly right. And the great thing about Ethan is he knows it. He knows he can't do that. Remember last year he had a couple interceptions at the beginning of the season, and I only think he threw one more the rest of the way. I mean, he didn't really do that. So hopefully he's going to learn from it. And I think we already saw that because in the second half he was a different quarterback. They started doing some quick hitters. He started getting the ball out of his hands sooner. A couple of the throws late in the game that he made to the tight ends, I think he had 2 to Matavao and 1 to Bryce Pierre. Those were big time throws and crucial moments. I thought his the couple of throws downfield, one of them, the PI to Rico Flores,
Yeah.
was really actually a bad throw, but he was being pressured. And I actually think the only reason why we got the PI is because he threw it behind him, and it led to the PI. But as Matt Stevens and I will tell you all the time, when there's no safety in the middle of the field, you throw that post to space. You put it up in the air and you throw it to space and you let them go get it. You don't want to throw it behind them in that situation because there's nobody else out there. So they got away with that one, but then that next post was a great throw. I was very impressed with what Rico Flores did. I thought he had a very good game. But I do have to point this out. There was a couple of slants and a couple of deep routes where, and I want everybody to try to picture this in your brain. If you run a slant and you're a quarterback and a receiver, and you throw the slant and the quarterback throws it on time, and you start leaking upfield almost like you start one running forward, it lets the DB have an opportunity to come through with their hand. If anything, you should flatten out and come back to the ball and reach out and get it. You have to feel that. Like you have to feel the person behind you. You can't leak into coverage. The same thing happened on some of those deep crossing routes. The receivers were kind of almost like bleeding upfield. And another thing we have to point out, should Hawaii have such tight coverage on our players? Like we've been talking about, and let's be honest, we've said it too. This is an elite receiving corps. And it comes down to, and again, I'm not being mean. Are they? Are they? I'm just gonna. I'm listen, and I listen. I feel like I love this team enough. I'm around this team enough. I talk to some of these players. I hope that when if I'm a quarterback, I don't want you missing those balls. I want you fighting, and you're gonna miss some, but I want you coming back to the ball and making a play for me. Especially if it's a 50-50 type thing. There was 3 or 4 I can think of that were pretty good throws that got knocked down by the defender. I want you to find a way to make that catch. And so, I think there was not a ton of separation. You have to get separation when you run pass routes. So I want to see that. And then the other thing I would argue about is, Logan Loya has proven that he's a really good receiver, and he didn't see him involved at all. So,
Yeah.
I worry about that too. So, it's time to watch the film. I still, by the way, if you think that I don't like our receivers, I do. But it's like whenever people compare people to J.J. Stokes, I'm like, have you watched film of J.J. Stokes?
Yeah.
Have you actually watched him play? I was in my classroom the other day, and someone posted the UCLA San Diego State game when Marshall Faulk played, and in the highlight, it was like a classic thing that someone posts on social media, and it was JJ catching a corner route and then like making three people miss and scoring a touchdown, and then I mean it's like watch the games, and that was just San Diego State. The next week against Washington, he had 4 touchdowns, and you could not stop the guy. The week after that, he had like 3 more. I mean, like it was like he was a guy that he just would not be. It was like watching the receiver for Arizona, right? McMillan.
Yeah. Oh
McMillan's
my
that guy.
gosh. Yeah. Wow.
McMillan's that guy. Like, so if you want to be a part of an elite receiving corps, then you got to not want to go down. You got to not only make the catch. Like there was a pass to J Mike across the middle where he kind of went down to a knee and missed it as he was falling down. He should have never gone to the ground. Just run through it. Run through it and make the catch. So, and again, not picking on anybody. They made enough good plays in the second half, enough big plays to win that game. But my whole thought is, if you guys want to be that team you think you're going to be, you know what I mean? I watched the game, and I saw a star in Cam Medrano. I'm like, dude, that guy jumps off the screen when I watch him play. He is so fast. He looks like a guy that used to be a receiver. And there were other, Jay Toia, man, he's always there. Like every time you look at, there's this big number 93 in the middle of the field causing problems. Okay. On the other side of the ball, we didn't have really anybody causing too many problems. I would say Rico was the one that probably stepped up. Mataval had a good game when they threw him the ball, but I think they need to be a lot better. And I think all those guys would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that is, well-earned criticism right there from what we saw. And I think for truly this offensive passing attack to be what we think they can be, Wayne, because we talked about the playmakers out there, your sturdivants. Rico Flores looked fantastic, 3 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. I go back to that one play where Garbers is rolling towards the sideline, not even the touchdown catch, and at the last second just let it go, found Rico. Rico goes 53 yards down the field, getting UCLA.
That was the short one back across his body.
Yeah,
And
beautiful.
One of my favorite plays of the whole game. That was an awesome play. Yeah.
Garbers has that ability to manipulate defense with his legs. I mean, he was our lead rusher. But I think that's the main problem I have, Wayne, is can this passing attack be as good as we think it can be with no threat of a run game to be able to fool the defense?
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I looked at the teams that I thought played. Some of the teams that had tough games. And like Penn State, they ran the ball well. Like some of the teams, like where SC and LSU, really neither one of those teams ran the ball that well, but they threw the ball really well. In the second half, though, and this is what's great, if you're not running the ball well, and you can get the ball out quick, and they did a lot more of that. And for Ethan Garbers, I mean, we were saying it the whole first half, dude, don't force your throws, run, get 4 yards. He had several opportunities to run in that first half. And then in the second half, you saw him take those opportunities, and his legs were great. I mean, he really affected the game with his legs running. So, but to answer your question, we have to be better. I have a feeling that Jalen Berger, I know he was at the game, and I know he was suited up. I think that he'll be fully ready to participate. I don't really know exactly, but I have a feeling players like Sharif Say, on the defensive end, and then also some of the guys that transferred in a little bit later. I think they're still want to make sure they're in good enough shape to where they don't get hurt. But really, the run game was bad. They just couldn't get anything. We had a couple of okay runs. I think Keegan had one up the middle where he kind of ran through somebody, which was good to see. But I'm just going to go ahead and say it again. There wasn't a whole lot. There was some missing in the middle. There was some times where we were blocking 2-on-1 and there was a guy totally unblocked in the hole. Like, why did we not do that? We didn't. Sometimes our guards wouldn't get off who they were supposed to get off to get to the second level and get the linebacker. Like, I just kept seeing mistake after mistake after mistake. And now remember, DeGiorgio is a really good college football player, and he did not play, so we did not have that. And then when Unije got hurt, and I thought, him being hurt, and then, we're just going to struggle when you lose 2 starters. But there's some things like are we going to keep Josh Carlin at center? Are they going to think about moving Yoon in and letting him play and moving Josh back to guard so we have our 2 starting guards from last year? Like there's some by the way, I'm not saying that should happen. I'm just saying that when you watch the game, and I watched the film, it's we've got to get better up front. There was too many people missing assignments. In some cases, I watched guys get off the ball like seriously, it looked like a half a second slow after the snap. Some players look like, and maybe it was the heat, maybe it was dehydration, I don't know, but there was some slow movement out there. I will say this though, is it Prongus?
Yeah,
Prongos?
he played.
Yeah,
He was like one of our best linemen, if not our best.
I really like his athleticism. He's a big kid that I know he was a basketball player. Like he can move. He's got good feet. There's promise there because I don't like to see guys that look like their feet are in cement. He did not look like that. Like I don't know. I'm not going to grade him. I don't know what his grade was, but just his natural movement, you can see his athleticism, and that's exciting.
100%. He was one of the bright spots of the unit. And Wayne, you may remember this. This was 2 years ago, Bowling Green opening week. It was hot as hell at the Rose Bowl this day. I think it was like 100 degrees in Pasadena, just a scorcher. I actually had a media pass to that game. And the offensive line looked, dysfunctional. This is when you lost your Sean Ryans and your Alec Andersons. And you're just kind of going, is this really a unit? And then from seasons beginning to seasons end, it was like a completely different offensive line. Neo Mafi, John Gaines, Duke Clemens were arguably the best interior line group of the Pac-12 that year. So it makes you wonder, like, if we can just get some time to gel. And thank God we have an extra week of not playing Indiana immediately this Saturday. If I'm, Juan Castillo, I'm getting these guys together every single morning. I'm doing two-a-days if I'm in because it's like, hey, fellas, like we did not get it together just right. We got to work on this. Can you remember a similar time, when you were playing where a position group that you were a part of, you guys had a bad game and you guys put in the extra time to make it better come the following game and it made an extra difference for you guys?
So just so everybody understands where I'm coming from, I mean, like, none of this is ever like I can be as positive as anybody else, but like when I see it as an athlete, I would like someone to tell me, like, I was teasing you that after my golf match day, after 3 holes, I literally sat in the golf cart and everybody got up and went up on the tee box and I just sat there and I kind of like cussed myself out a little bit. Like, dude, you're better than this. Like, stop being such a wimp and get out there and play. Like, because I'm a competitor. Like, I wanted to come back and I wasn't going to quit. And I remember, I'll give you my football analogy. Junior year, my Rose Bowl season, we had lost to Cal by 2, and I threw an interception at the end of that game, and with a chance to go down and kick a field goal, and to freaking, I forget the guy's name, but I hit him right in the numbers too. It was terrible. And then against Nebraska, Tommy Frazier and company, who went undefeated that year until the last game that they lost by, missing a field goal to win the national championship. We lost to them by 1. And I remember sitting, and I've told this story a million times, but I remember sitting in the meeting, and Homer Smith, our offensive coordinator, stood up in front of the whole team and didn't say the offensive line played bad, didn't say the receivers played bad, because in that case, everybody can point fingers at he's talking about the other guy. He said the quarterback play is not good enough. And I didn't play bad. I mean, I didn't have bad numbers. I had us in the game. It's just, it wasn't good enough. And I could have wilted. I could have cried. I could have said, I'm transferring tomorrow. I could have done any of that stuff. But we ended up, that San Diego State game that I talked about earlier, that was the next week. I ended up having 11 touchdown passes in the next 3 games, which at the time was a record at UCLA for a 3-game stretch. And we went off. We just started killing people. I mean, that team, we scored so many points. It was fun. And so if you're going to have a setback, better to have a setback and a win, right? But as an athlete, it's okay if you get called out. Like, if you're one of the guards and you had a crappy game, you're either going to get better or you can't play anymore. If I'd had one more bad game, I'd have been benched. I guarantee it. I'm positive of that. If we'd have gone 0-3 that year, I would have not played after that. And my whole life would have probably been different. So at this level of competition, if you don't show well, you know what I mean? And what's cool, isn't it great about this game is if you think about last year, Garbers got benched after a bad start. If Garbers gets benched, we never get to see that second half, which he played really well. I actually thought Ethan was way better. Matter of fact, he the way he ran the ball and threw the ball, he led us to a victory. So hopefully he just goes from there, where last year he was benched before he even got the opportunity. So, everybody's got to look themselves in the face and say, listen, we won, but man, we got to be better than that. Indiana's not going to come in, new coach, new staff, new quarterback. They're not going to come in and just say, we're going to roll over in the Rose Bowl. They're going to bring it, and they're going to be better than Hawaii.
It's a Big Ten team coming in. And,
Yeah.
to Garber's credit, man, like just to bounce back, his whole career's been bouncing back. Like he went to Washington, right? It didn't work out there. Transfers to UCLA, thinks he's going to get the job. Dante Moore comes in there, beats him out initially. He fights back, gets injured, keeps going, and then he just keeps playing his ass off, man. It's so inspiring to see a guy like Garber's put in the work. And that first half, I think he would tell you it was terrible. It didn't go well.
He did. No, he
And
did. I mean,
yeah,
he's quoted as saying he didn't play well. Yeah.
he did. Yeah, he did not play well, but just the bounce back. If we're getting that version of him moving forward, we're going to be in a lot of football games that we should not be in. And man, Wayne, he is an absolute gunslinger, man. He fires an absolute fastball. Zero duck in the throw, just beautiful spiral, tight hits. I mean, that throw to Carter Shaw to even start the game.
Oh, that was great.
Just right on the numbers. Just a beautiful strike.
So let's talk about this. First of all, Carter Shaw. I remember talking to his dad quite a bit last year when he's got a job in the NFL, but when he was hovering around practice a lot, like we played against each other. David Shaw and I, he was at Stanford when I was at UCLA. What a great guy. But he told me, and Coach Kelly before he left told me the same thing. He said, listen, Carter Shaw's going to be good. Like he's tall, he runs well. Like last year, he was kind of skinny. He's put on weight. That was a great route and a great catch. And I'm all for, hey, if you're earning it, get him on the field. That was a great play. One of my other favorite throws was the one to J. Mike, where he ran an amazing route. Like he post stem, came back down the line. Garber's kind of rolled one way, planted, threw it back, threw kind of a deep curl, and it was just a thing of beauty. I'm like, when you watch plays like that, you're like, oh, we need to do more of that. But remember, though, play action doesn't work if you can't run the ball. So we got to be able to run the football going forward because, it'll help us so much. But I agree. Second half, there were a lot of those moments. There was a lot of really good plays and really good throws, and we looked like a much different. Remember, we were down 10-0.
10-0. We didn't put up a point in the first half. The 39-yarder to Rico in the end zone, just a dime, man. Just in the breadbasket, easy wrapped up. Let's talk a little bit about the defense, man. And Wayne, this kind of came to me. I mean, I thought great adjustments from Ilkaika Malloy in the second half. Secondary was active, making plays. I liked some of the blitzes they called, with your likes of a KJ Wallace, who looked really good for UCLA. You talked about Ramon Henderson getting an interception, rushing the quarterback as well. But where I want to start is, Wayne, this linebacking room is incredibly, incredibly deep. I mean, you look at Schwessinger, whose name hasn't been brought up enough. He led the team in tackles. Led the team in tackles in that game. Welcome back, Kane Medrano. I mean, it's been 3 years since we had seen him last play against Hawaii in that game. Ali Cahow came out and made some big-time plays. Kane Medrano made some huge plays to disrupt the passing game. We talked about the pick that he altered with DJ Justice. I forgot about John Vaughns until he came out late in the fourth quarter. Femi had to stop on fourth down. There was just a lot of – I mean, has there ever been a deeper room in the last 10 to 15 years for UCLA football when it comes to linebackers?
Woods played a lot.
Yeah.
Schwessinger was in the game a lot. Remember, it was fun to see. It was really fun to see Kane and Oladejo all over the place.
Yeah.
They would be lined up outside. They would move in over the tackles. They were really coming from everywhere. And those two are great leaders too. And then, I was like so happy to see Ale Cahow healthy. Because we've all wanted it. We all knew he's a player, but he's got some speed to him, and I like that. John Vaughns is a known commodity. I thought Schwessinger was fun to watch. Like he's a player that's going to help. I mean, there's just so much depth. It was a thing of beauty. And remember this too, Jay and Keanu Williams, Tuia and Williams were really good in the middle. I thought Busick showed up. Apu made some plays. It's interesting because Kafusi had a big play in the game. Sitvini Havili Kafusi, and he's a guy that's grown into, the size of a good D tackle. So we're gonna need we're going to need those guys. Remember, Gary Smith has been in a boot for feels like way too long. So I don't know when his timetable is, but I don't think it's going to be for quite some time. So those guys are all going to matter. Like, we may not have had the pure pass rushers that we had last year, but I thought we did a great job. Like, whenever you see a quarterback that doesn't look like the same player in the third and fourth quarter as they did in the first quarter, that's usually because you're knocking them around a little bit. Like, I know he got hurt. He kind of dinged an ankle, but still, he did not look like the same quarterback late in that game as he did early in that game. So, I mean, we could keep talking. KJ Wallace was like, wow, he was really good. Ramon Henderson, I mean, at the end of the half, talk about a guy that made a ton of really – because remember, after that interception, we had to stop them and force a field goal. I mean, I think we were all thinking, oh, crud, they're going to score a touchdown here. We're going to be down by, be 14 or whatever it was, and they only got a field goal. So, I mean, all those plays mattered. The defense won that game. I'd give all those guys a game ball. It was impressive, and I don't really think – if I'm thinking about it, I go, who played a bad game on the defense? I don't think anybody did. I think, yeah, some people are going to complain that they gave up too many of those short hitters, but that's college football. When you play a team like that, they're going to watch Hawaii. They're going to go be a decent team. They're going to be able to move the ball against a lot of teams. They're not going to, we did a good job against them.
Yeah, and I mean that run and shoot offense is very hard to defend, especially it's just a quick 3-step drop, get the ball out very quickly. And don't even look at the first game. I think they were in a game with Delaware State that was close to the end. Apparently the wind was just insane that game. So
it was rainy and windy and nasty. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the two scores that, Hawaii has had doesn't really reflect how their offense is going to be projecting moving forward. So I think this is a bowl team, a team that's going to be headed to a quality bowl game. It kind of reminded me of the South Alabama game a few years ago where, we didn't look our best. We somehow scraped it together, won at the end. And then you look up and South Alabama won like 8-9 games that year.
Right.
Like, it was a very impressive team. I kind of felt the same way with Hawaii. We get a couple weeks to kind of work on the little things with the offensive line. And I'll tell you what, man, Keanu Williams and Jay Toia, Keanu coming in there getting the sack. And I know Toia, the defensive tackle, the nose tackle position, the stats do not really always reflect what was there. The amount of leverage he puts on the offensive line that they have to account for each and every snap. I mean, he's taking on 2 to 3 guys in these. It's like watching like a John Wick movie. Like, he is just going at these dudes. It's allowing, your Ramon Henderson's coming up, your Ollie Kayhows, Olufemi Oladeja with that stop on the 4th down, him getting in the backfield, making plays. Jay Toia will never get the credit he deserves, but I promise you, NFL scouts are watching his tape going, I would love to have this guy on my team tomorrow. Yeah. So Jay Toia doing big-time things, man. And I'm going to finish off with this, Wayne. Obviously, the offensive line needs to get better, which will, help out the run game. If you were to, improve one position group outside of the offensive line as we head into our second game of the season next week against Indiana, what would it be and why?
Well, first of all, kudos on what you just said about Jay, because you can see it if you watch the game. He doesn't always make the play, but oh my gosh, he's a problem from the offense. He's just a problem. It would. I mean, 100%. I'm old school in the way that I think that unless you can run the football, you're going to struggle. And so, and I don't know if I can say the running backs without saying the offensive line. I mean, they're together in this. So we've got to. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to say the run game. We're not going to go through this conference this year throwing the ball like a Mike Leach team. We're going to have to be able to run the football. This team has gone. I mean, we can go all the way back to Joshua Kelly. We've been a running. I mean, think of all the running backs that we put in the NFL. Britton Brown and Charbonnet and Demetric Felton, and like it just one right after the other. Carson Steele last year. So we were going to have to get this run game going. I think it'll make Garbers a much better player. We want to be able to have play action. We want to do things that will make the defense be honest. Yeah, we might have to throw the ball to get people out of the box so that we can run. But man, when we have run plays where the numbers match up and we miss and we don't get yard, because that's what you want. When you run the football, you want to have the numbers. Do we have enough guys to block their guys? And if we have that and we're missing, then that's where we've got to improve. So I would say of the whole game, if that part was better, and let's be honest, should we have won? I mean, remember Garbers threw a touchdown going into an interception going into the end zone too. He
Yeah,
threw one
no.
going in and one coming out. I mean, we score there. There was like some moments, that stupid fake punt, which was the easiest thing in the world. If those two moments in themselves don't happen, we might have won by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's a game of momentum. I'll give you
Right? I mean,
one thing I feel like it's very similar to what was happening with Jerry Azanero when I first started covering this team. Malloy, in my opinion, is a superior defensive coordinator just from what I've seen. But the problem remains the same. And I like some of the things that Busich did. I like some of the things that Alpew did. I want to see that front four generate a lot more pressure because it felt like
sure.
when we got our sacks, we had to bring those 5, 6, maybe even 7 guys coming in there. We disguised coverages very, very well when it came to the second half. A lot of beautiful things. But a lot of the guys that were getting in the backfield being disruptive were your Madranos, your Olafemi Oladejaos, those type of guys.
Yeah.
If I can get Busich and Alpew to just generate a little bit more pressure off the edge, I think this can be a very complete defense. I mean, do you agree with that opinion before we leave?
Yeah, I do and I don't. We don't. I mean, we don't have a player on the field that's a lot to, and we might not even have the Murphys at those positions right now. So I think we might have to be a little bit more creative. I think if I had a wish list, that'd be great. Like but I think those guys can be solid in a different way. So I agree. I think the defense. I mean, they're going to have their struggles, but I mean, if they stay healthy, like we've got a lot of good players. So I'm with you. I mean, obviously, you want to be able. If you can only rush your front four, it just changes what you can do with the rest of the defense. So wish list, yes. I just don't know if we have that player or 2 players right now. So we just might have to do it in a different way. That's all. But like, I don't disagree. I would love to see it. I was impressed with Busick. I actually thought he showed me a lot. Great hustle, great energy, big strong guy. He kind of collapses. That he just doesn't have quite that little extra to get around sometimes. But like he made a lot of. He was a disruptor in the game. So I thought he was pretty good, but we're not going to have a lot to this year. Latu changed so much last year because he was so great.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody's a Latu on this team for sure.
Hey,
But
one more quick
yeah,
thing, because since you have my ear, we have to punt better. The first couple punts were gross, right?
yes,
Like
yes.
that you can't that you give the other team great field position. Like the kicking, the field goal kicking was like woo. I know we missed the long one, but like other than that, I was like yes, because it had been
Matini
so
running.
bad. but the punting's got to be better. And that's something. Those are little things that we're gonna. Don't you think that that we're gonna have a lot of tough games this year? And if we play well, they're probably gonna be close. So the little things are gonna matter a ton. We're gonna have to win some of those games where a punt here or there is going to matter. Okay, field position is going to matter. So those are the things we need. The punting is something I would love to see us get better at also. And I know everybody's saying, well, we don't want to punt. I know we don't, but we're going to sometimes. So when we do, we want to punt well. We don't want to give the other team great field position.
Yeah, absolutely. The little things, lead to big results, as I like to say. So hopefully
Yep.
we can kind of clean that up. And the pass rush was good. Just for the record, I thought Busich, he got a sack registered to his name. He did well. I just, in an ideal world, I think you want to send
Yep.
just 4 guys. But hey, man, I mean, it's hard to argue. 5 sacks, 11 tackles for a loss. They got after a very good offense in the second half. It wasn't pretty, but we got the W. Wayne Cook, thank you so much for coming on, man. Loved recapping this. Let's have you on again here very, very soon if you are up for it, my guy.
Thank you, Will. We get a week off. We're going to watch a lot of college football this weekend. And then hopefully Indiana. Man, I'm telling you guys, I know we'll talk before that probably, but man, I hope everybody wants to go to that one at the Rose Bowl. We're kind of lucky, by the way. There's this heat thing going on right now. I'm okay with waiting. Maybe the weather's going to be a little bit cooler by the time we get to that Indiana game.
Man, we need it, for all the people to show up, our UCLA fans out there loud and proud. Wayne, thank you so much for coming on, guys. Bruin Bible, we are officially out.